December 1989. The United States decides to invade a sovereign country in Latin America.
Fighting is still going on in Panama City. The Americans say 19 of their soldiers have been killed and more than 100 wounded.
Which honestly, at the time, it wasn't unusual. But this time they blasted rock music outside a Vatican embassy to psychologically break the man hiding inside. His name was Manuel Antonio Noriega. Panama's de facto dictator, CIA informant, and he's probably the first and only held state that was defeated partially thanks to rock music. Welcome to Boring History, where history is anything but. Okay, so who even was Noriega? Let's start at the beginning, and it's a rough one. Born in Panama City in the years between 1934 and 38, he literally lied about his birthday in basically every document. Honestly, it tracks. His mother had tuberculosis. His dad rejected him. And by the age of 5, both parents died. He grew up in the Terraplén slums, one of the toughest parts of the city at the time. But here's the thing, dude was smart. He got into Instituto Nacional, which was at the time the most prestigious high school in Panama. Like many dictators throughout history, his plan A was in military school. He actually tried to get into medical school. He failed, so he went the military route instead. He won a scholarship into a military school in Peru, and that's where things get interesting. While he trains in Peru, the CIA notices him. Why? Because he had no family ties, no political affiliations, and he was really ambitious. In other words, the perfect asset. They recruited him as an informant, and he would work for them on and off for about 3 decades. He comes back to Panama, rises through the military, and he latches onto a guy named Omar Torrijos.
Estimado señor presidente Carter, hay dos clases de verdades, la verdad lógica y la verdad agradable.
A general who pulls a coup in 1968 and takes power. Noriega helps him consolidate control, and in return, Torrijos makes him Chief of Military Intelligence. Chief of Intelligence. This guy went from the slums of Terraplén, and now he's basically running Panama's secret police. That's a globe and a half. So Torrijos is in power. Noriega is Chief of Intelligence, and the United States doesn't really care. There's a simple reason why they don't care. The Cold War. As long as Panama is anti-communist, they're willing to look the other way. But in 1981, Torrijos mysteriously dies in a plane crash. The official story, bad weather. The unofficial story, nobody really knows. But what we do know is that Noriega used chaos to maneuver his way into consolidating power basically in the whole country. Not basically. Literally. By 1993, he's the commander of the Panamanian Defense Forces, and through that title, he's the de facto ruler of the entire country. He didn't even want the presidential title. He preferred to rule behind the scenes. He installed puppet presidents, while he pulled all the strings. Think of him as the final boss of a game. You never actually see him until the last level. Now, how does somebody stay in power like that? Simple. He had leverage over everyone. He was feeding intelligence to the CIA. He was also feeding intelligence to Cuba. He was helping the US-backed Contra rebels in Nicaragua. And he had a deal with Pablo Escobar's Medellín Cartel. He allowed cocaine to travel through the Tocumen airport to the United States. $1,000 per kilo. The man was playing everyone simultaneously. And for a while it worked, because when you're useful to everyone, nobody wants to take you down. But empires built on blackmail and cocaine tend to have an expiration date. By 1988, the US had enough. Evidence of drug trafficking, extrajudicial killing, and electoral fraud had piled up too high to ignore. They indicted Noriega on federal drug charges. They froze Panama assets, cut off Canal payments, and Noriega, he doubled down. In May 1989, Panama holds elections. The opposition, led by Guillermo Endara, wins by nearly 3-1.
It's finished now, President.
He was finished long time ago.
He held his power by fear.
Noriega annuls the results, has his guys physically beat Endara on the street, and declares himself maximum leader. Then, December 1989, after one of his officers shoots down a US Marine officer in a roadblock, President H.W. Bush launches Operation Just Cause.
Well, on Wednesday, December 20th, I ordered U.S. troops to Panama with 4 objectives.
26,000 US troops invade Panama. Within days, the Panama Defense Forces collapse. Noriega runs. He hides in the Vatican embassy. And that's when the US Army sets up speakers around the building. They start blasting rock 24/7.
If diplomacy can't move Noriega, why not try rock music? Playing it at full volume outside the Vatican embassy, where he remains holed up.
Good morning, Panama.
Imagine being a wanted dictator hiding inside of a church while troops blast Van Halen 24/7. Noriega eventually surrenders. January 3rd, 1990.
All of these objectives have now been achieved.
He was tried in the US for drug trafficking and racketeering. He was sentenced to 40 years, later reduced to 15. Then he was extradited to France. He was convicted there for money laundering. Then he got sent back to Panama, where he died. He was convicted for murder and human rights abuses. He died in a Panamanian prison in 2017 at the age of 83. But what did he leave behind? Panama, after Noriega, had to rebuild from scratch. Politically, economically, and morally. The new government abolished military entirely. Just got rid of it. No more armed forces. And in 1994, Ernesto Pérez Valladares got elected. He committed to democratic governance, and he ensured the Panamanian people he will fight the corruption that Noriega normalized in the country. Today, Panama is considered a stable democracy, which honestly is remarkable given how they were in 1989. But here's the thing that doesn't get talked about that much. During Noriega's time, civic institutions, churches, the press, universities, and private organizations, they were all under pressure. Some were shut down, some were monitored, some were persecuted outright. Which brings us to someone who can give us a perspective most history books don't offer. What happened to established institutions that had deep roots in Panama's civil society in that era? I'm talking about Freemasonry, especially the lodges connected to the Panama Canal. Joining me now is R.W. Eduardo Crócamo, immediate district Grand Master for the District Grand Lodge at the Panama Canal, under the authority of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. Eduardo, give us the quick version. The Panama Canal Masons have been around since the early 1900s, right? What was the lodge doing during the Torrijos and Noriega years?
Okay, I'll be giving you a little bit of context. Lodges has been around way before 1900 and the beginning of the Panama Canal. The fraternity was introduced in the Isthmus to two routes, but roughly at the same time. The first one is through the Panamanian merchants traveling to the British colonies of Jamaica and the West Indies. And Jamaica, at that point in time, remember that Bolivar was exiled in Jamaica also during the wars of independence and revolution from Spain. The second route was from the revolutionary Masons who brought continental European Freemasonry to Latin America, especially the French variety. The Panama First Lodge was called La Mejor Unión and was organized in Panama City, obviously July 14, 1821, under the jurisdiction of the Grand Consistory of Paris in France, the Supreme Council of France of the ancient and accepted Scottish rites. Freemasonry was reintroduced into the Isthmus several times during the last half of the 19th century, usually to suit the needs of temporary and American European workers and travelers. A good example is the building of the railroad in 1855, during the California Gold Rush and the construction of the Panama Railroad. And one of the first lodges was called the Union Lodge 82, who was chartered under the Grand Lodge of Texas in 1852, providing a safe haven and passage to all the passengers coming from the Atlantic to the Pacific, going to the West Coast. And to answer your question, during the hardships of the Panama Crisis, we call it the Panama Crisis, during February 1987 to December 1989, the lodges in Panama did what they do best: help and assist the members. The country back then was divided among those of us who wanted to end the military dictatorship, actually run by General Manuel Antonio Noriega, and the ones who wanted to maintain the status quo. And we had members on both sides. And there were members in jail as political prisoners, members seeking asylum in Venezuela, United States of America, Canada, and Costa Rica. And lodges would try their best to help and assist the members in distress. And the success of Freemasonry is the practicality and applicability of its principles: friendship, morality, and brotherly love and charity. Also, the most important one, we do not discuss politics nor religion during our meetings, lodges becoming a safe haven for their members. There were many cases, but I remember one in particular when a professor of the Panama Canal College was abducted from his place the night of the invasion, December the 20th, 1989, by the paramilitary forces loyal to General Noriega. The fraternity got together and put their network at work. All the three jurisdictions, the Grand Lodge of Panama, the District Grand Lodge of the Panama Canal, and the lodges under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Unfortunately, the body of our brother was found a few days after the cease of the hostilities, but the lodges provided in any way they can comfort during this time of distress to their families. So that's why we do our best.
Were the lodges seen as a threat by the regime? Because Noriega was known for surveillance and suppressing civil organizations. Did that reach into Masonry?
Historically, totalitarian government has been known for the dislike of the fraternity. During World War II, Freemasonry was abolished and prosecuted in Spain, Italy, Germany, China, and Japan, and obviously the USSR. In Panama was a little bit different since we have members on both sides, and also military lodges inside the military bases at the Panama Canal Zone under the jurisdictions of the United States of America. In Panama happened a similar situation as in Cuba. Fidel never tried to infiltrate Freemasonry, as we kept our principles of not discussing politics nor religion into our lodges. So it was a safe haven for all of them.
There's this idea that Freemasonry operates as a kind of civil society within civil society, maintaining ethics, brotherhood, continuity across political chaos. Did the lodges serve that function during this period?
Lodges maintain the principles and the ethos, and like I mentioned it before, providing a safe refuge to the members, whatever their political side or inclinations. And there is a beautiful story in Freemasonry and the American Civil War. It's called Brothers United in Times of Great Division. So during times of great division, Masons provide resources to both allies and enemies to ameliorate the hardship during conflicts. And that's actually what we did. We provided a safe haven during the years of the crisis, protecting and providing refuge to the members, and also after the invasion, the ones who were in power, then they were not in power anymore, and they were seeking asylum and transport to safe countries like Venezuela and Cuba, and we provided that assistance, whatever your political side was at that point in time. So we honor our commitments, and we honor our oath of helping our brothers.
After 1989, when the US invasion happened and the PDF was dismantled, what did that mean for the lodges? Did things open up? Did membership change?
After the invasion, there was an opening. Before the invasion, the lodges under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge in Massachusetts, better known as the District Grand Lodge of the Panama Canal, wouldn't let Panamanians to get in unless they have a second or third nationality. But after the invasion, that changed, and Panamanians were received into American lodges, and Americans were received into Panamanian lodges. We have good examples of that. Under the Grand Lodge of Panama, there was a lodge that was formed after the invasion called Harmony Lodge number 18, and that Harmony Lodge number 18 was funded by members belonging to the District Grand Lodge of the Panama Canal, providing fraternity and fellowship among Panamanians and Americans and third nationalities also. So everything opened after the invasion. It was a more friendly environment, I would say.
Last one, and you can be as cryptic as you want. Is there anything about the Noriega era that Masons know that most Panamanians don't?
Yeah, well, General Manuel Antonio Noriega was actually a very bright, very brilliant, I would say a brilliant military. And something happened that it changed during the 3 years that he was in power. From 1983, 84 to the invasion. And as a matter of fact, it is very funny. I would say that anecdote that not much people knows, not even among the brotherhood. As a matter of fact, General Manuel Antonio Noriega tried to join one of our lodges under the Grand Lodge of Panama jurisdiction back in, I believe, 1985 or 84. But due to the political turmoil, his application was put to sleep, was put behind the carpet. So that's what we told General Noriega back then. General, we have to wait until the political turmoil ceases within the country, and then we can process your application. But that never happened. But that's a fun fact. Not many people knows about.
Manuel Antonio Noriega, CIA asset, dictator, music torture victim, and a convicted felon across 3 countries. He was a product of geopolitics of the Cold War, where being useful to the right people could get you to the top, until the moment you became inconvenient. And then the same empire that builds you sends you 26,000 troops and Van Halen to take you down. What I find the most interesting is not that he was a spy, sort of, or even the cocaine stuff. It's the question Eduardo touched on. What happens to civil institutions that outlast dictators? Civic organizations, lodges, churches, universities, the ones that keep meeting quietly, maintain their values, and survived. Because that's how societies actually recover. That's how societies actually recover. Because that's how societies actually recover. Not just through elections and new governments, but through the institutions that never stop functioning.